I was listening to someone I really admire in the spiritual space recently, and they said something that immediately didn't sit right with me. And it wasn't in a reactive way. I wasn't feeling defensive or anything like that. It was just this quiet internal knowing that said, I don't know if that's true. And what I found really interesting is that the moment I noticed that, I was already doing the thing that I want to talk with you about today, and that's discernment. And you can only discern from your own truth. So today, I want to pull apart something that I think gets taken for granted in spiritual spaces, and that's the idea that there is such a thing as the truth. And we're going to do things a little bit differently today because I want to start with a quick visualization because I think this works better when you feel it rather than just hear it. So take a minute, pause if you need to, and don't do this while you're driving, obviously, but close your eyes when it's safe and just, connect however you connect, breathe in, get your breath regulated, and then let's just talk through this little visualization. Only going to be quick. You only need a few minutes. All right. So when you're ready, just imagine that every single person alive right now is standing hand in hand in a line around the earth. And the people closest to you are the ones that are most like you. They've got similar cultures, similar backgrounds, similar experiences, and similar belief systems. And everyone's standing there, hand in hand, and someone asks, "Tell me truthfully, what do you see in front of you?" Now, some people start describing a winding stream with a large tree and tiny yellow flowers. Or some describe a skyscraper in the distance. Some describe a never-ending desert. And I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can open your eyes. And the question is this: who is telling the truth? And yeah, all of them are. Every single one of them is telling their truth. Because truth is not a fixed object sitting out in the world waiting to be found. It's what you see from where you're standing. And here's the thing I want you to really sit with. We're all one at source, spiritual beings having a human experience. And at that level, there's no separation. But that human experience where we're standing, what we've lived, what we've been taught, shapes what we see as true in any given moment. We're all one at the source. The diversion happens at the human level, not at the spiritual level. It's the human level. It's the oh God, I can't say that word. The intricacies. Thank you. Intricacies of the person that we choose to incarnate to live out and learn from this human experience. And that has to be an important distinction. And what's more, the truth you hold today isn't necessarily the truth you're going to hold in 5 years' time. Like, if I ask you how many of you have professed love for someone only to find years later that it's no longer our truth? And that doesn't mean we lied. It means that truth is alive. It moves, it changes as we change. So, if truth is experienced differently at the human level, what determines what each of us sees as true? And this is where I want to introduce something I talk about a lot in my work, which are three kind of key factors. There's a lot more, but three main factors that influence our belief systems. And that's our cultural conditioning, our family patterning, and our lived experiences. And I call it CP&E for short. Because your truth is not random. It's been built layer by layer through every culture you were raised in, every pattern you watch play out in your family, and every experience that left a mark on you. And most of it happened before you were even old enough to question it. And let me give you an example because it makes more sense when you can see it from a different perspective. I want you to think about a situation at work. And this is what happens in this situation. A man walks up to a woman, grabs her arm, pulls her close, and embraces her, then walks away. Now, I'm going to give you what two different people could potentially see in that instance. I know you've probably got things running through your head in that, just thinking about that situation as well. But let's look at two different witnesses in that moment. Let's say one is a woman whose CP&E includes a sexually abusive childhood where affection was associated with something unsafe. And the other witness is someone whose CP&E includes a family where men bonded physically and affection was completely normal. Same moment, two completely different truths about what just happened. Neither of them is lying, neither is wrong. Both are just seeing it through their own lens. And this is the part I'd love you to really sit with. How much of what you currently believe is to be true about yourself, about relationships, about the world? How much of it is actually your truth? And how much of that is truth you absorbed from your CP&E without ever stopping to question it? And that's one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Because you cannot live from your own truth if you're still carrying someone else's. Now, I want to be really clear here because I think this is where it gets a bit more nuanced, and I don't want to be reductive about it. I'm not saying that nothing is real. I'm not saying that a universal or cosmic truth doesn't exist. As spiritual beings, we come from the same source. There's an underlying truth to the universe, universal law, all of that. A ground of being, something that precedes all human perception. And I can absolutely 100% hold space for that completely. What I can't hold space for is the idea that any human being has a clean, unfiltered pipeline to it. Because every sacred text that has ever been written was received and interpreted by a human being. Every spiritual tradition that exists was shaped by a specific culture, a specific era, a specific set of power structures. Every teaching that has ever been passed down has moved through human minds and human language, which means it's moved through a human lens. And your channel to truth is never neutral, and neither is anybody else's. And that doesn't make those teachings invalid. It makes them filtered. And there's a significant difference. The teachers I trust most in this space are the ones who know their channel is filtered and say so. They're the ones who say, this is what came through my lens, or take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Because the moment you come across someone who tells you that they have access to the truth, the unfiltered universal truth, and that your job is to simply receive it, that's the moment your discernment needs to come online. Which brings me what I think is probably the most important point in all of this. The very fact that we can discern it all, the fact that you can hear something from a teacher or a tradition or a framework and feel into it whether it's true for you, that capacity only exists because you have your own truth to measure against. If we were all one universal truth that we all had equal and identical access to, then discernment wouldn't be required. We just all arrive in the same place, and we don't. And that's not a problem to solve, that's more evidence. And I want to be really clear about something here because I think it gets misunderstood. Discernment is not the same as dismissal. It's not disrespect. It's not disloyalty to a teacher or a tradition that you love. I honestly admire and respect the person whose comment triggered this video. I've learned a great deal from their work, and I also quietly and clearly do not agree with this particular thing that they said. And both of those things are true at the same time. Because discernment's not disloyalty, it's self-authority in action. And that's discernment with kindness. You can honor someone's lens completely while gently recognizing that it's not yours. In fact, I would go even further and say that the ability to do that, to hold that genuine admiration and genuine disagreement in the same hand, is one of the most important things, the most important skills that you can develop in a spiritual awakening. Because when you're awakening, you're often flooded with teachers, frameworks, truth claims, all of this stuff arriving at once. And if you haven't developed your own discernment, it's incredibly easy to outsource your truth to whoever speaks either the most confidently or most lovingly, or even most in alignment with what you already want to believe. Because self-authority is not about rejecting other people's wisdom. It's about running it through your own lens, your own truth, before you decide to take it on board. So the next time you hear something that doesn't sit right, even from someone that you deeply respect, I invite you to notice that feeling. Please don't dismiss it and don't override it. Just allow yourself to sit with it. You know, it's that quiet internal knowing, is your truth speaking out loud, and it deserves to be heard. So today I'm going to leave you with one question to sit with, and that is this. Whose spiritual framework have you adopted as your own truth without ever questioning where it came from or whose lens shaped it? And is it really yours? And you don't have to answer that out loud, just notice what comes up. As always, I've got some free resources in the links and description below. Sending you lots of love in your journey, and we'll see you next week. Bye.